Hey there, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Foul Territory. I'm your host, Mike Smith, and I gotta say, I'm really excited. Opening day is just around the corner. We are a week away from the first game of the year, and so I think it's time to have a little bit of fun, throw some predictions out there, see what sticks, see what doesn't, and I guess you can hold me to it at the end of the year. But a little later on, I will be joined by a very special guest that some of you old timers will remember either fondly or with great disdain. But first I want to take a look at the single A division, kind of give you my thoughts on how that division is going to shake down. I don't know if it's a top four, top three, just going to throw some things out there. I guess starting at number four, I want to go with the prospects. The prospects have been in this league a pretty long time. Had a real good showing last year, but I think they lost a lot in this offseason, namely their two best hitters, which I think is going to work against them. Chris Jackson, who was the single A MVP last year, and Mark Perez, who showed up at the tryout and really wowed a lot of guys. He's a catcher with a lot of pop, and I think losing those two guys is really going to hurt the prospects' chances this year. And another team I want to talk about was the Downtown Bulls. You would think that maybe coming down from Double A, this team could really do some damage in Single A, and I think they can. I think they can be pretty solid, but again, losing guys in the offseason, that hurts. I know that they're 3 and 4 hitters from last year, and this is from what I've heard from other managers. You got Chris and Hank Delon. Losing those guys is really going to hurt them if they hope to become a playoff team. Well, I'm sure they'll be a playoff team, but if they want to vie for a title, that might be tough for them. They're still a good ball club, and I think that they're going to surprise a couple people down there. I think you start to get into the cream of the single A crop, and there are really kind of there's two teams that really jump out there. The first of which being the Elm Jack Dodgers. Obviously, this was a new team a couple years ago, really built on their pitching. Danny O'Brien, real solid southpaw, won the Cy Young in Single A last year. I mean, he's money in the bank every time he steps on the mound. And that they've also got other guys, Kevin Briffa, Matt Brown. These guys, they have probably more depth in the pitching staff than most teams that you'll find in the Single A. But I think they really made a big jump forward this year with the disbanding of the Elm Jack Cardinals, the Elm Jack's Double A squad. I know that they've got a couple guys from that team, and we're not just talking about, your run-of-the-mill bench players. Alex Shepard, who was the manager of the Cardinals, great outfielder, in his better days hit, 400 in Double A. Steve Morgan, another really effective player. And I think that, the Dodgers being a younger squad, I think they're definitely going to benefit not only from what guys like Morgan and Shep and Slaughter can give them, in the stat sheet, but also that veteran leadership, which I think is going to be very important. So I think that this team is poised to make a big step forward this year. And, it wouldn't surprise me if they walked away with the Single A crown. But I'm also a firm believer in the old saying to be the champ, you got to beat the champ. And in my mind, that number one team in the Single A this year is going to be the team that took it all last year. Of course, talking about the Bronx Titans. Now you look, the Titans are kind of a multi-divisional powerhouse. They got their Double A ball club, their Single A ball club. I know. I think one or two of the guys from last year's championship team moved up to play Double A ball, but I feel like this is still a team to watch. I mean, you've got J.R. Hill on the mound. He's really going to be kind of the workhorse of the staff. Great pitcher, and he's one of those guys like a Danny O'Brien who every time he steps out on the mound, your team has a chance to win. And they've got a lot of other guys. George Scott, who was in the MVP consideration last year, who's a really talented ball player. But the big thing that the Titans did this year, I think that they really were major winners at the draft. they picked up Robert and Michael Fernandez. They're two cousins. One Robert's an outfielder, Michael's an infielder, and these guys were probably at the first tryout. There were about 4 or 5 guys who were really impact players, according to a lot of the managers, and these guys were arguably the best 2 position players at the tryout draft. So, for a team to walk away with both of them, well, I mean, considering that they're cousins, it makes a lot of sense. But for the Titans to come away with 2 of them, I mean, those are 2 game changers right there. Robert, very successful with the Braves a couple years ago, and Michael, I think that can really transform them up the middle with Robert in center and Michael at short. They're going to be a really tough ball club, and so it comes down to that, and I think that other guys coming back, Jason Irizarry, another guy who's been in the league for a long time, took some time off. He's coming back. He's going to make a major difference. So, for my money, it's going to come down to the Dodgers and the Titans, and I don't want to, I don't want to tip my hat yet. I don't really know who's going to win that matchup, should they meet in the finals. But, I think basically those are the 2 teams to watch in the Single-A division. So now to break down the Double-A division, I've got a real treat for you longtime NYCMBLers. This guy had a long career on the forum, making predictions, kind of getting people riled up. He's been away from the game for a little bit, but I want everyone to welcome back Ron Darling. Ron, Mike, how's it going, man?
Mike, thanks, man. I tell you what, it's so good to be back. I eat, sleep, and drink this stuff, so it's exciting after kind of a quieter year last year. I'm really looking forward to the weather breaking here. See some wood bats breaking as well in this league. A lot of good teams out there. Excited to chat. Real excited to chat.
All right, great. So, first, Ron, I think we'll start with my neck of the woods, the Brooklyn Queens division. Just kind of tough division, Mike. No, it's there's a lot of parity there. So, I just wanted to get your take on it. If you're ranking the top maybe 4 teams or so, I mean, who do you have right now, kind of, in that upper echelon of Brooklyn Queens teams?
I like that. I like that format here, March Madness style. Going to get into my final 4 here for Brooklyn Queens. I mean, I'm going to start we'll go bottom up. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
I know that's what all you boys like to do after the game anyway, bottoms up at whatever the local watering hole is. But I guess we'll start with the Rainmakers here. They're kind of who I think, even as a new team, just have a ridiculous 1-2 punch with those Cornell kids, Casely and Wood. They're a pair of incredible arms that they're bringing out there on a regular basis. And then their lineup-wise, I feel like their pitching staff is going to be the biggest problem for other teams to deal with. But when it comes to their actual lineup, I think they're going to be passable.
There's been a lot of things said about this team. I don't know. Have you kind of heard any teams talking about the Rainmakers this year?
Yeah, Mike. There's a lot of anxiety, kind of interest in these new teams that come into the league, and I know their manager, what is that, Antonio Cardona?
Mm-hmm, yep.
It sounds like he's been doing a fair amount of talking about their team. Granted, he has some successful arms, like we talked about, decent lineup, fairly formidable, and he's their backstop as well. But all in all, I don't know. The team really has a lot of work to do. It's like being a preseason favorite as an expansion team, and those are big shoes to fill. So I don't know. It seems like Antonio thinks it's going to be a walk in the park, but there's a few teams here ahead of him on my list who I think they're really going to have to contend with. And you need more than 2 pitchers who are going to throw that heavy ball out there if you want to have some success in a league like this.
Well, that's great because that leads us right into your next team. Who's that first team that you have ahead of the Rainmakers in your preseason rankings here?
Well, I think what did it for me last year for this number 3 team, the Express, was kind of that outburst they had in the playoffs against the Mud Hens. A good team last year.
I remember that well. Yeah, that was a tough one.
You know that, Mike. You know that. Believe that. So, they have these other, they have a bunch of guys in that lineup who can hit the cover off the ball, and I think Bill Pisani is probably going to be their biggest and best one.
Yeah, so, Bill's obviously a great player on the offensive side of the ball. They've also got, their team manager, Brian Burney, probably one of the better second basemen. But I know that they lost some in the pitching staff. So what is their rotation looking like this year?
The rotation, I think the big guy you're going to have to look out for is this kid Kornreich. He's a bit of a question mark for them just in terms of no one's really seen what he's got quite as well in this division. But I think you know this, Mike. It's not like this is a day in, day out major league caliber league where you're going to have videotape on these kids. So that can be a good thing in a lot of ways. Kid throwing some nasty stuff that people in the league aren't familiar with. They got the other kid, Shields, pretty good pitcher as well, also good on the other side of the ball. So, they're going to be a definite force to be reckoned with here. I like what this team can do, especially at the plate and with this new arm in the mix. I wouldn't be surprised. I have them at 3 here, but if they're a little higher than that by the time all the dust settles, then I wouldn't be shocked. So,
well, you know what I mean. They're one of those teams that I think they really made their mark last year in the Double A, moving up from the Single A. But I know I took a quick glance at your list. There's some more established teams, Double A teams that you think also have a chance to do some things. So who do you have at number 2?
I like the Rough Riders.
Yeah, they're a good team.
Eve, DMX, all those guys. Now it really starts and it doesn't start and end with, but it really starts with Juan Ramon. That kid can bring some gas. So he's going to be. He's probably going to be coming out of the pen for them this year, it sounds like. That's the rumor that I'm hearing out there on the street. But, it seems like they are going to have even some additional stronger pitching with this knuckleballer. And aside from having Ramon in the pen, they should have Juan Ramos as well. And I think he led that team in wins last year, if I'm not mistaken.
He did. Tough knuckleball.
Yeah, exactly. You don't see a whole lot of that anymore. And with R.A. Dickey out of town, it might be the best one in New York, if you ask me. But Jared Barner's the other guy you got to watch out for there. He's a couple years removed from having the breakout year that he had. But I feel like the Rough Riders are going to be a real tough force to reckon with. But then the other things, too, it's they're going to have to keep their heads. You know what I mean? I feel like just from what I've heard and what I saw last year, if they're out of their comfort zone a little bit, there might be some infighting on that team. They might lose their cool. And for a long season, you blow a game, someone blows a gasket. Next thing you know, you're finding yourself in a hole you can't dig your way out of. But the Rough Riders on talent alone, I think they might have what it takes to make a serious run at this thing.
And then, finally, to round out the Brooklyn Queens, who is your number one team heading into the season, just based on what you've heard and what you've seen?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Mike. I've played in this league. I also played in the Bronx Manhattan division here, and I feel like this team, although their name it sounds a lot like a WNBA franchise, but the New York Storm, I think, are probably going to be the best team in the league. I mean, their corner infielders are absolutely ridiculous. Nice anchor there in the middle of the lineup. And, I'm talking about Brian Howard, John Lanahan. They basically swept the MVP voting last year. Mm-hmm. And you look at their numbers, and it almost looks like a WNBA scoreboard with 58 runs scored here. It's crazy, the numbers that they can put up. So that's one of the things you're going to have to worry about from the offensive side. So.
Now, on the pitching side, obviously they had Mike Pena, who was a great pitcher in his rookie year in the NYCMBL. Have you heard anything about them maybe trying to get a couple new pitchers in there?
Well, we talked about the 1-2 punch for the Rainmakers with Casely and Wood. I guess they both went to Cornell too. So we got an opportunity for another Misericordia kid coming onto this team to join Pena. So I don't know if that's going to wind up coming to fruition. If it does, I think they're going to have the pitching to go with that lineup to take them to number 1. But at the same time, if that's not set in stone, then they're really only going to go as far as Pena and Turo Wilson are going to take them. So it's going to be an interesting to see how that pans out for the Storm. But like I said, Mike, they're certainly the class, in my opinion, of the Brooklyn Queens division.
So Ron, I just want to ask, as the manager of the Mud Hens, I mean, we were a team, we put up the second most wins in the regular season last year. You left us off and you left the Braves off, who were
strictly personal, Mike.
I wanted to know what your thought process was there.
Well, I like what the Hens bring to the table in terms of the some of the douchebaggery that you guys tend to have happening. It's a fun team to watch, Mike. I think you do a nice job with those boys. But the one thing is, you had a big year out of Eddie Suarez, which I don't think a whole lot of people foresaw. Eddie's got one of those big swings, and if he has a big year in 2013 as well, that could be a big boost for the lineup. But I'd rather have a guy who doesn't strike out 50 times a year. Well, if Suarez has another career year like he had last year, then that could be a big boost for the lineup, which is pretty anemic if you ask me, and not even just me, but if you ask anyone. Not a whole lot of offense coming from those kids from the. It sounds like you staffed. I think you went here too, Mike. Most of your kids from Dickinson College.
Yep.
A couple of those guys can play ball, but if your pitching staff doesn't hold up, then it's going to be trouble for you guys to stay in the game, especially against some of these heavy lineups that we talked about up there for these other 4 teams. And as for the Braves, obviously hats off to them for what they did last year, but they lost too many guys. I feel like, with De La Rosa leaving that team, switching to the other division. He's the most dominant starter in the whole league, in my opinion. And they just had too many losses, and I think it's going to be hard for them to make up for that. I don't know where that's going to come from, any of that production, whether it's on offense or from the mound. But, I just don't see the Braves or the Hens competing at that elite level this year like they did last year. But you know what, Mike? You know it as well as anyone. It's a long season. Anything can happen. So, we'll see.
All right, so now we'll jump on over, and I'll try and not take that as disrespect, but why don't we switch gears here, talk about what's going on the Bronx Manhattan side of things. So real quick, top 4. Who do you have at number 4?
The New York Baseball Giants, probably who I would pick for that. They won the league last year. But I'm dropping them down just because of the fact that they've kind of stayed put while everyone else seems to be getting a whole lot better. Yeah, they're a real balanced team, Mike. You know that. They don't have that one standout player necessarily, and I think the perfect kind of microcosm of that team is you look at Oldfield off of the mound there. He's been their number one for ages, it seems like, and you look at his stuff, and it's not overpowering. It's not dominant. He just gets it done. He's a good pitcher. They're a good team, but I don't know if they're going to be a great team again this year just because of the turnover that they've had in that lineup.
No, that's fair enough. It looks like maybe possibly both of the teams that won their respective divisions last year have kind of a tough road ahead of them. But
Baltimore Ravens. Look at the Ravens, man. Same type of deal.
Hey, well, they signed Elvis Dumerville today, so maybe that's a step in the right direction for them.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah. I was just reading that, but
hopefully, all the guys for your team and for these other teams get their contracts in by 4 p.m. or whatever happened to that
guy. So you talked about some of the teams that took a step forward, and I think that really the New York Tigers are one of those teams that really took a step in the right direction. What are your thoughts on those guys this year?
If they're taking a step in the right direction, I think you were taking a peek at my list here because that's who I had next. I think they're going to be a really good team this year. We talked about De La Rosa, obviously. You got Joe Carey as well on that team, and between those two alone, they're if not the best, they're right up there with Kaisley and Wood as the best pitching duo in the league. And pitching wins championships in this league, and they made a move that showed that they're hungry to win a championship this year. So they really, really beefed up that lineup, and they should be good. So
now the one question I had, because obviously Joe Carey had a wonderful year last year. He was the Cy Young and MVP for the Bronx Manhattan division. Do you think it's going to be tough for him to kind of repeat that kind of performance this year, now that people kind of know that Joe is the guy to beat on the mound?
Yeah, Mike, he's a Jekyll and Hyde type of guy, and sometimes you see a guy who kind of emerges out of nowhere, puts in the work, finds that type of success that he had last year. That can be kind of like we talked about a pitcher no one knows about, can be a good thing or a bad thing. A breakout year can be a good thing or a bad thing too, because now people are gunning for you. And last year that expectation may not have built up until the end of the year when he has, as much confidence as you're going to get in this league. And he's going to have a target on his back this year, I think. And I know it helps because De La Rosa is going to take some of the load off of him, so there won't be as much pressure on him to kind of replicate last year. But all in all, you're right. That's a big question mark for them, and I think it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
So, obviously you got the Tigers at number 3, and a lot of people just based on that De La Rosa acquisition, they also picked up Ray Kaczynski, who's a pretty good outfielder. A lot of people kind of thought that they might be the favorites to take the Bronx Manhattan side. So who do you have at number 2 now?
Yeah, well, I got to be honest with you, Mike, here. I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit and combine 1 and 2 into the same grouping here. And I think you probably know where I'm going with this because it's these two teams who are coming back down from AAA, the Titans and the D-backs. You know, as much as I like the Tigers, I like their talent, I love De La Rosa, you look at the bigger picture here, and to see these teams be able to play and hold their own up in AAA last year, once that league disbands, they come down. And I know, we were just talking about how good the pitching is for some of these other teams in the division, but on the other side, you have hitting galore on this Titan team, and I think it kind of starts and ends with Chris Premiani. That kid hit like 600 in the league or actually last year maybe. I can't remember exactly.
I think it was 2 years, and he was certainly a tough out. I do remember that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you have another strong lineup built around him from what I understand. I mean, I got to be honest with you here. I don't know as much about these guys. I don't as feverishly patrol the message boards there in AAA, but seeing what the Titans are bringing down to this league, and also, Padilla, the lefty for the D-backs, is also a talented arm that you have to reckon with. And Pete Alvarez, I got to tip my cap to this guy for keeping this team together, keeping them competitive, and now keeping them at the top of my list here for what I think is going to be a pretty competitive year for the Bronx Manhattan division. You got some good teams in there.
Well, Ron, you know what? I don't agree with everything that you said, but I do appreciate you coming on and giving your 2 cents. I'm sure there'll be a lot of backlash on the message boards from people that whose team you didn't pick. But again, I'm looking forward to having you back in the fold. And if you ever want to pop by, just give me a ring and let me know, man.
Sounds good, Mike. Appreciate you having me on here. I'll tell you what, there are a few things in this life that I enjoy more than being correct. But I also wouldn't mind being wrong on a few of these and talking about some new teams, some new faces here when we do this again in a couple weeks, couple months, whenever you want to have me. I'm sure I'll see you out of the ball fields there a few times as well. So good luck to your boys. Good luck to everybody here in this league. So should be a fun one.
Thanks a lot, guys. It was Ron Darling with his picks. And, I wouldn't take anything that Ron says to heart. But it was good to have him on, and it's good to be starting the season. So I wish everyone the best of luck this year. Season opens up on Saturday, and until then, guys, just keep it between the lines.